This will be a shorter video than most of mine on this case, but I have to say, I have really started to like the defense attorney in this case. I like his theatrics and I love the way he gets the defense in the minds of the jury. More on that in just a sec. Here's what we're talking about today. The witness on the stand today was the medical examiner who did the autopsy on the decedent. Now, a huge portion of the direct examination was laying the foundation. How did you go about doing this? What did you look at? What did you open up? What did you take out? What did you find when you took things out? That sort of thing. It's all necessary to sort of document the entirety of the autopsy, but for the most part, it's just kind of gross for people who are not trained in anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology. It's really, it's necessary for the science part of the case, but it's not something that's particularly riveting testimony. So I'm not going to go into a lot of that. But what I am going to go into is the cross examination by the defense attorney, because there are some real gems in this. Before we do that, though, let's take a look at a couple of the questions that the state asked him with regard to cause and manner of death.
And what internal damage did you observe as a result of the gunshot?
So inside the body, his organs, those were all good. I had to do a special dissection on his right thigh to document the injuries going on within the soft tissue. And he had a lot of blood and bleeding in the muscles of his right thigh, in the region of that gunshot wound. And he had holes in his femoral artery and femoral vein.
You mentioned he had holes in his femoral artery and vein. Did the bullet strike or sever those major arteries?
Yes, the bullet struck those arteries.
And now, Dr. Mathis, based on your expertise and experience, would an injury to the femoral artery, such as a gunshot wound, cause rapid or severe blood loss?
It will cause severe blood loss. The blood comes from the heart, it's pumping. The femoral artery comes off after the aorta branches into the iliac. The femoral artery is one of the branches that comes off the iliac artery. So, and it supplies blood flow to the rest of the leg. So it's a very important blood vessel, and it will bleed, and you will lose a lot of blood from it.
Although I've obviously truncated it, it's obvious that the cause of death here is exsanguination. He basically bled out from the gunshot wound. But now the issue of his drug use comes up.
Did any of the substances that he had in his blood system contribute to his death?
No.
Notice that the state here isn't asking stuff about how much and how awful that stuff is and what it makes people do and how they act. She just wants to know if it caused caused anything related to his death. And the doctor answers it sort of off the cuff, but I think he realizes later that he probably misspoke a little bit. Here is the cross-examination on that issue.
Now, the amount of cocaine that this man had in his system, you testified earlier that it's not part of the cause of death, correct?
That's correct.
However, that amount, it is a potentially lethal amount, is it not?
Any amount of cocaine is technically potentially lethal.
But this amount, this isn't just any amount. This is
a goodly amount, yes.
Okay.
A goodly amount. It's not just a small amount. It's consistent with recreational use. It's not like somebody used to be like a body packer or anything like that. But it's not just, sometimes we'll see people, regular cocaine users, and they're probably coming down and they have just a tiny little bit of cocaine coming along for the ride. This is, he's using, Yeah.
So this is, we're in Miami. There's cocaine in Miami. But this is not just, like you said, not a little bit. This is a rather significant amount of cocaine that this man took, right?
This is recreational use of cocaine. It's not, like I said, it's not the little bit we see with somebody that's coming down. They're in the active phase of using.
Now, am I correct that that when somebody's using cocaine and they use other substances, particularly alcohol, that increases the toxicity of cocaine, correct?
It can, yes.
Okay. That combination, cocaine and alcohol, it produces a metabolite called cocaethylene, correct?
That's correct.
And in your autopsy, you tested for cocaethylene, correct?
Yes.
And he had 0.150 milligrams per liter of cocaethylene in his blood.
Yes.
And when looking at the alcohol, he had 0.108 blood alcohol level. Is that correct?
Yes, 0.108 in the ocular fluid, 0.107 in the blood.
So if he had been operating a motor vehicle, he would have been driving under the influence.
Correct.
Because the legal limit in this state is 0.08.
That's correct.
All right, so he had this very high amount of cocaine in his blood, along with this amount of alcohol in his blood, which would have been enough to trigger a DUI had he been driving.
Yes.
And he also smoked some weed too, correct?
At some point he used marijuana. I cannot tell you how he used it, and I cannot tell you when.
Now, doctor, you were asked about whether or not some of these substances delay or could affect how long it takes somebody to bleed out. Can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Yes. So just as I explained before, cocaine is a stimulant, and it, just like the adrenaline rush that will occur when somebody gets an injury, it will increase the blood. It will increase your blood pressure through constricting your arteries, and it will cause your heart to beat faster.
So it would appear that the whole idea that the drugs didn't contribute is false. They did contribute because they increased his blood pressure and increased his cardiac output such that he would be more likely to bleed out because he's higher than a Georgia pine with cocaine. And that's unfortunate for him. It probably did contribute to his death. But he then goes on to talk about the gunshot. And this is where the cross examination goes from science to art. Watch.
Is running around stalking somebody. Okay?
Yeah.
That person is told to leave. They don't leave. At some point, there's a confrontation, and the person is asked again to leave. The person screams and says, I want to die, I'm ready to die. And then they run towards a house with the intention of breaking into that house, which they have no right to be in. And a person fires a shot in that person's general direction for the sole purpose of getting that person to leave, which they have thus far refused to leave. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Fires a gunshot for the purpose of getting that person to leave, which that person has refused to leave up until that point. Once that gunshot is fired, that person starts to leave. You would not expect that person to immediately bleed onto the ground and show where that person was standing at the time he was shot. Is that correct?
He could be bleeding at that time, or he could start to bleed later. I can't tell you one way or the other.
So at this point, they had a brief sidebar. The prosecution has been objecting a lot more. They certainly had the right to object to a compound question there before, but they didn't do it. They were objecting essentially to the hypothetical. So now, after having gotten that testimony, because of the sidebar, he gets to get it again. Watch.
Ask you again.
Yes, please.
This man is whacked out of his mind on cocaine, alcohol, marijuana. He's been asked to leave. He refuses to. He's in a heightened state, very aggressive. Screams, I'm ready to die. I want to die. It's not leaving. It's not welcome in the house. It doesn't have permission to be in the house. Has no license or no authority, no right to be in that house. He's going to that house, running towards that door. Shots fired for the purpose of getting him to leave, which he has already refused multiple times to do so. Shot goes into his body. Once that happens, he's not going to the house anymore. He's running away. He takes about 15 steps running away from the house, give or take 15 steps before blood starts to drip out and hit the ground. Is that consistent with what you've seen here, with the wounds in this case? Could that have happened?
So you're asking if could he have been shot while still inside the house before leaving?
No, he didn't get inside the house.
Oh.
Running towards the front door, is shot, and now the shot is what caused him to abandon his attempt to go into that house.
Okay.
So now he's running away from the house.
Okay.
And he makes it about 15 steps, give or take, 15 steps away from the house before you start seeing a trail of blood on the ground.
Okay.
Is that consistent with this? Does that make sense?
It can happen that way. Yes. Like I said, he could start bleeding immediately, or it could take several steps to begin to start bleeding.
So the scenario that I just laid out for you, this is not a wildly impossible or unlikely or ridiculous scenario. This is consistent with what you've seen, correct?
It's one way it could happen. I can't tell you for sure that he didn't start bleeding for 15 steps. I also can't tell you for sure, he would have started bleeding immediately.
So the prosecution gets up to do a redirect, and then I think she probably made an error in doing it. She should have just left it alone, because this provided a great opportunity for the defense, and I think you'll probably enjoy the way it's handled.
You're also asked about hypotheticals, so I want to pose one to you. If a person goes outside, they're on the steps, they pick up a gun, they point it at the victim sees the gun, in fear for his life, turns around and runs away, and that person shoots. Is that consistent with what we have here today?
Can you repeat your question?
Yes. A person picks up a gun, aims it at the victim in fear for his life, turns around, runs away, and the person shoots the victim. Is that consistent with what we have here today?
Yes, it could happen that way.
Thank you, Judge. No further questions.
Judge, free cross on that question.
Yep.
Judge, I would ask that we go silent.
You were asked about a victim who's in fear for his life, running away, right?
Yes.
So what should she just ask? Would you expect somebody who's in fear of their life to say, "I'm ready to die"?
Judge, speculation, maybe promise of the jury. Can you answer that question?
I can't. Thank you.
Now, the objection was to speculation. It was kind of unclear in the audio there, but it was to speculation, calls for speculation. And perhaps it does. But the question is what was important, not the answer. He wasn't really expecting to get an answer from that. He's putting into the minds of the jury, how does a guy who says, "I'm ready to die," have any fear for his life? Clearly, he has no fear for his life if he says he's ready to die, "Come kill me." And apparently that's what the fellow said. One of the things that you get an opportunity to do in trial every now and again is serve the other side a big piece of humble pie. And that was what happened right there. Would you expect him to say, "I want to die"? And of course, you heard how he raised his voice and was booming across the courtroom. And he didn't come off as bullying to the witness. He just came off as, "I'm asking a serious question here. The prosecution doesn't want you to answer." and they fell right into the trap. Objection, speculation. And so the judge says, well, can you answer that question? And he goes, I can't. Because, of course, he's on the same team with the prosecution. He's not going to deliberately go out of his way to help the defense here. But I thought it was, like I said, very well done as far as technique in cross-examination. This guy should probably teach a seminar. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee. Anything that makes their day better, that would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.